Start us off.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. I want to welcome you to the Farm to Early Care Gardening, Childcare, and Food Access Settings in SHIP 6 webinar. We're thrilled that you can be here. We are going to first start things off with the land acknowledgement, and I'd like to read this and give people a chance to listen to it and soak it in. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to make the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We are standing on the ancestral lands of the Dakota people. We want to acknowledge the Dakota, the Ojibwe, the Ho-Chunk, and other nations of people who have called this place home. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the treaties made by the tribal nations that entitle non-Native people to live and work on traditional Native lands. Consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together here today. Please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Well, I am just going to quickly introduce myself, and then we will jump in and allow the other two co-presenters to say hello. My name is Elizabeth Gardner, and I'm the Early Childhood Coordinator, working in the Health Promotion and Chronic Disease Division and the Office of Statewide Health Improvement Initiatives here at MDH.
And I can introduce myself. I'm Nora Shields-Cutler. I work at the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy on the Community Food Systems team.
And I'm Maggie Johnson. I am a SHIP coordinator for Horizon Public Health. We are a 5-county health department in West Central Minnesota covering Douglas, Pope, Stevens, Grant, and Traverse counties.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of cue up and frame our conversation a little bit today. Our primary audience for our discussion is the local public health agencies working in the childcare setting, or those who are interested in working in this setting in the future. We just wanted to make the connection right away that farm to ECE activities are tied or connected to food access. So local public health agencies working in the food access setting have also been invited. So we're trying to weave that concept and that audience into our discussion. The next thing, we wanted to just briefly recap and review the learning objectives. You might have seen these mentioned either on Basecamp or in the Making It Better newsletter. We have 4 learning objectives. We would like to have participants to walk away with an increased understanding of the significance of farm to ECE. Generally speaking, why is it important and why is it supported in SHIP 6? We would like at the end of this session that participants will be able to define the 3 components of farm to ECE. We hope that participants will have an increased understanding of the actions or activities that local public health can take to help childcare providers, whether they're home-based or centers, plan and implement gardening initiatives and activities. And lastly, we want to make sure that people walk away with meaty information and that they have at least 3 resources that they can refer to in the future. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Nora for her part.
So I think from seeing some of the names who are here, we are starting at the very beginning, and many of you are not, maybe none of you are at the very beginning, but so just super briefly, when we're talking about farm to early care, what we're talking about is gardening, nutrition education, and local purchasing. And today we're specifically going to mostly focus on the gardening component. And as I think you all know, or if you don't now, you do. That's what Farm to Early Care is. And if you've been following along statewide, we do now have a Farm to Kids network. So statewide, we've been working on sort of expanding that messaging to talk about all the way from birth until kids graduate from high school. So we're talking about sort of the whole breadth of Farm to Kids to encompass both Farm to Early Care and Farm to School. Again, I think I'm speaking to the choir, but why we care about and why this is an evidence-based strategy is that we know that farm to early care activities can help encourage kids to both try new foods and eat more fruits and vegetables. I'll send out, there's a nice little roundup from the Farm to School Network of some of the research if you're ever needing to use it for a grant or anything in terms of some of the research that's been done on farm to early care specifically. And then back in 2023, I'll go into some of the results of just things we've heard from early care providers. Things that we've heard from other supportive folks is understanding what early care providers need and connecting with early care providers can be challenges. So we did a statewide survey in partnership with MDH several years ago now in 2023, and a couple key stated needs from early care providers who took that survey. There were about 300 folks in Minnesota who took that survey, that they wanted more supportive resources surrounding how to engage kids around food and growing food, and then like simple to use, low cost materials that folks wanted to be able to do this in their early care. So I just briefly want to go through some of the things we've heard because I do think it's really helpful in terms of framing how you might approach early care providers. And obviously, whether or not these things are true or not true in your community will be, based on as you build relationships or with the relationships you already have with early care providers in your own community. But we know that gardening is a very common sort of entry point for farm to early care for providers. And you can see here that of the folks who took the survey, 70% of them were gardening, 67% were both growing, serving local foods and educating children about local foods. And then you can see the variety of other things like taste tests and field trips and Farm to Kids Month in October and those kinds of things that are being done to varying degrees with providers around the state. And then I don't think this will come as a surprise to anyone, but the number one thing that early care providers would love is more funding support and opportunities for grants. And also a real desire for educational activities and lesson plans. And I think that both of these are potentially ways that SHIP can and has supported early care providers. And then you see that desire for gardening information and food preparation resources. So here you see outdoor growing is far and away the most common. I bring this one up in part because I think this isn't what I always think of. Both the indoor growing, just like starting seeds or having an herb pot in a window that you keep alive at least for a series of months potentially. And And then fruit trees and bushes are also something that early care providers have. And this is a mix, I should say, of both centers and in-home providers. Okay, and then I think, am I passing it back to you here, Elizabeth? I believe I am.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. We just wanted to provide a little context about why farm to ECE matters to SHIP. And these kind of rationale or these justifications should sound familiar to the larger goals of SHIP that are in place. But we also know that farm to early care promotes nutrition while addressing health inequities. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Farm to early care increases access to healthy, affordable, and certainly culturally relevant local foods for all populations in Minnesota. And then lastly, it matters because it supports local economies by encouraging early care programs to purchase from Minnesota farmers, producers, and of course, distributors. That strong economic impact has a ripple effect, of course, throughout the state. So that's why it matters to us. Okay, we'll turn it over to Maggie.
Yes, I'm super excited to share about a grant that we offered our in-home providers last summer, and then we actually replicated the project and are doing it again this summer. So we called it the Childcare Summer Garden Grant. So we offered licensed childcare providers $300 of SHIP funding to either start or expand gardens for the children in their care, with mainly a focus on like hands-on learning and exposure to new fruits and vegetables. So kind of what our timeline looked like, and I forgot to add in kind of the spring. So we started in about March, starting to like think about the project, how we were going to implement it, what we were going to do. And then in I think it was early May during like the Child Care Appreciation Week, which is I think this week, we attended the Child Care Appreciation event in the specific county that we were targeting. I gave like a 10-minute presentation about the grant that we were offering. And then the providers just sent us, once we approved their application, they sent us a list of the items that they were hoping to buy to start their gardens. They provided us all the reimbursement check or all the receipts, and then we just sent them reimbursement checks. They implemented their gardens throughout the summer, and then this past fall, winter, we just kind of reflected on how we can make this project better for the next year. So the image on the right-hand side, that is the actual like flyer that we handed out during the event. Super simple. We know that providers already have to do enough paperwork, so we wanted to keep everything as easy as possible. We use Alchemer through our public health agency. So we just created like a 10-question online survey. And the survey questions were basically like, how many children do you have in your care? How long have you been a provider? What are your plans for your garden? Have you ever gardened before? And then are you willing to send us any pictures, images, and do a follow-up survey? We got those and then we approved them, emailed them, let them know that they were good to go. We had super high interest. So in the one county where we attended the Child Care Appreciation event, we had 10 providers from that county. And I think there are only like 13 providers in the county. There are no centers in that county. And then we had 2 providers from the other 2 counties where we did not attend any sort of appreciation events. So we really realized like attending those events in person, talking about it, being like an actual like face to the project really helped us. We were super flexible with the funding. We wanted the providers to really identify areas in their own home, in their outdoor spaces where they could create their gardens. We didn't want to have to tell them like, oh, you need to do a raised bed, this specific thing. This is a very rural county, so a lot of the providers live on farms. Some of them already have big gardens. They just wanted to then expand them to offer them um, to the children in their care. So we had some providers really just need like fencing or a picnic table so kids could sit outside and cut up their produce that they grew in their garden. So really just meeting the providers where they were. We didn't want to have to tell them what they could and couldn't purchase. So what I would do differently, one of the things I had full intent of doing was sending a follow-up survey, and I just did not get around to doing it. So I don't have any like formal outcome data on how it actually went with the providers. Um, so I'm really kicking myself now, not knowing like how it actually went. I did hear from a few providers though this year who were like, that went so well. We started small. Are you going to offer anything so that we can expand and make our gardens bigger? And then another thing was we only provided $300. And that's not a lot of money if providers were starting from scratch. If they already had gardens, like they were able to purchase quite a few items. But if you were starting from scratch, you could really only buy like one or two raised beds and didn't have much money left over for anything else. So the future was to provide more funding per provider and then to build in more midsummer touch points and support. And then, sorry, Elizabeth, I'm just gonna follow up quick. We did provide this year in our largest county, Douglas County, to providers. We attended their childcare appreciation event just last Monday, the same survey format. The following morning, after the event, we went to the event, talked for about 10 minutes. The following morning, we already had 7 providers put in their application. So really, really exciting. People are so into this. It's so easy for them and it gives them the autonomy to really just do what they want. We're just excited about people's excitement around gardening.
Great. Thank you so much, Maggie. I appreciate your overview. That's very inspiring. Just a quick reminder, of course, for all of us working on our SHIP budgets and our line items, that SHIP expenses must be linked to a PSE change. So if you're either working in the food access setting or the childcare setting and have questions, just take a quick peek at that financial guide. And if you still have any questions, just follow up with your designated community specialist. That way you can see how, as Maggie described, how the purchases kind of connect to a larger PSC. I think that's it. Thank you.
So I just wanted to briefly, you all are more informed than I am about the strategy guide, but I wanted to just specifically talk about farm to early care related to the child care strategy guide and just thinking across these 4 areas like the strategy guide talks about. So thinking about the reach and understanding the landscape, I think to Maggie's point, go into the child care association events or figuring out just where people are located and how you can kind of spread access to the resources that you can offer. And then effectiveness, like I was talking about, sort of the 3 main areas of farm to kids or farm to early care, how you might be able to provide support across all 3 of those. I think I state pretty often that I think SHIP coordinators are often some of those key connectors to resources related to farm to early care. So I think many SHIP coordinators are really providing support across all 3 of those areas. And then adoption, I think Maggie just gave such a great example of how she was able to really tailor resources such that they could be flexible to what a provider needs instead of saying everybody gets this exact thing, and that doesn't work for the provider that wanted to expand the garden or put up the fencing, Maggie was mentioning. So I think that's one great example of a way that you can just allow folks to address the barriers they're actually encountering. And then implementation, we hear often about the challenges and needs related to training and support and connection with other folks. So I think, as I mentioned, I think SHIP coordinators, that's really a key role that is often played by SHIP staff. So one thing that I was specifically asked to talk about was connecting with childcare providers and how folks are doing that. I will say we are going to have plenty of time, so I would love if other folks on this call want to share how they've done it. I think Maggie's example, I'm just going to channel Maggie here, but I think that, presenting at events that if you have a local childcare association or some of those intermediaries, I think are really great. So here I mentioned sponsoring organizations. So any home-based provider that offers the child and adult care food program has a sponsor in the state of Minnesota. Right now we have 4 sponsoring organizations. And I think they're a really great intermediary to connect with. Most, if not all of them, have an annual conference that could be a great place if you're able to attend a conference. Some of them have tabling opportunities, so that could be a great way to connect with local childcare providers in your community. We also have folks around the state who've done a really great job connecting, oftentimes inside of their county, with like the licensing office, for example. Licensors have been a really amazing advocate in several communities that I know of, in terms of supporting some of these same efforts. And then childcare associations, there's a really wide variation. So I apologize, from a statewide perspective, I can't give you here's the, but I would definitely search for some counties have very active childcare associations with memberships or monthly meetings and that kind of thing. So that can be a great place to connect. And if you're not aware of how to find all licensed childcare providers and just a list of them, that's a more overwhelming way to go, but I'd be happy to walk you through how to do it if you're not aware. So then I just wanted to highlight some great resources. We will send these all out, and we would also love to aggregate if you have resources that you love, if you'd put them in the chat, I'll send those along too. So I just wanted to highlight a few. I think you all are likely aware of most, if not all of these. But I always like to bring up Grow It, Try It, Like It, because if a licensed provider isn't aware of or hasn't requested, they have printed copies. The availability varies somewhat, but licensed providers can actually request a free printed copy, which can be a real great asset. And there's a lot of gardening related and local food related. All of them aren't Minnesota possible, but many of them are. There's spinach and strawberries and some things we can grow here. So and they have a specific version for homes. So I always encourage folks to think about, and any of you who've worked in the childcare setting know that what a center needs might be very different than what a home-based provider needs, but just thinking about how that might look different. And Grow It, Try It, Like It is one great place where there's 2 different curriculums actually, and centers can order a different curriculum than homes. And then the Natural Learning Initiative has a really great, it's so great I listed it twice on this slide. It's out of North Carolina, and they have a lot of great videos and leaflets and handouts and various different things. And they specifically have a portion there that's about gardening with young children. So I think it's a great place to access resources. And then if you haven't used Kids Gardening, I really love their resources. They do now require you to create a login, but it is free to create a login. And so if you're up for it, check them out. And then in Minnesota, we have the Harvest of the Month resources. I know a lot of you have used those related to the school setting. And we also have a subset of early care oriented resources with recipes. And those aren't as specifically about gardening, but wanted to list them here because I do think we've had cases of folks being able to use them in more settings than one. And I would say some of the videos, especially for kids with preschoolers, are great in terms of actually showing things growing in the field and highlighting farmers around our state. And I will pass it to you, Elizabeth.
Great. I hope this is just a helpful reminder for people, you know, as in your role as SHIP coordinators. I don't have to tell you what you already know, but you are doing a lot of coaching. Coaching with childcare providers, coaching with food access leaders, coaching with workplace and school staff. And we just wanted to remind you that coming up this summer, there will be a series of what we're calling Coaching Skills for Leading Change. It's both open to former participants. So if you attended a coaching skills class in the past, you're welcome to come back and learn some new information. Or if it's brand new for you, you are welcome to attend. Watch your email and we'll have more details. But we think this is just, you know, an opportunity to strengthen those skills as you communicate with your partners at the local level. And that includes, of course, while you're working on farm to early care gardening initiatives. So thank you.
Okay, well now I think I'm gonna pause it here to stop our recording, and then we've got plenty of time for questions and sharing.